Okay, excellent. It looks like we have everybody joined into the webcast, so why don't we jump in and get started. First, welcome everyone to the eSpecs for AutoCAD presentation. My name is David Hood. Brief agenda of what we're going to be covering this afternoon, starting with an Interspec company overview. Then we'll jump right into the eSpecs for AutoCAD demonstration, wrap up, talk about pricing, licensing. Again, we are going to keep the phone lines muted this afternoon, but you can use the questions panel to post any questions you may have. Try to take a handful of those before wrapping up this afternoon. A little bit about Interspec as a company. We were founded in 1998, headquartered here in Portland, Maine. We've been using eSpecs as an online spec writing service ever since 2000. And in 2004, we started support for Autodesk AutoCAD and Revit-based applications. In 2006, ARCOM and Interspec worked together to integrate the industry standard AIA master spec libraries within eSpecs. And we'll be using those master spec libraries as a part of the demonstration today. We also integrate custom office masters and other documents as well. We have many firms that have their own set of sections they've built from the ground up, and they wish to use those within eSpecs, and we've done some integration for them. We also have many firms that start with master spec but extend upon it with their own custom language, lessons learned, and want to incorporate that into eSpecs, and we can absolutely do that as well. Our customers include the top 7 design firms in the United States, but we also have many medium and small size firms utilizing the software as well. A little bit about our release schedule. In 2008, we released eSpecs version 4. In 2009, we announced our BPM, or Building Product Manufacturers Program. 2010, we released eSpecs version 5, and just recently in 2011, we released eSpecs version 6, which we will be demonstrating this afternoon. And with that covered at this point, I would like to jump right into the presentation. So we're going to end the slideshow, and I will bring up the eSpecs for AutoCAD application. A little bit about the interface here. On the left-hand side, you'll notice the eSpecs Workspace. As I start inserting spec sections into my project manual, they will be located under the appropriate division on the left. On the right-hand side, in this gray area, is the eSpecs editor. And once we get some spec sections built into the project, we'll go through a lot of those spec editing capabilities. Now, I've already gone through the process of starting a specification project. Here you'll see I gave the project a project number. This was before the presentation. And I gave it a name called ESA, or eSpecs for AutoCAD for short, project. And we're going to use the master spec full-length 04 library as a part of the presentation today. Now, we do ship the master spec libraries within the eSpecs database, but again, we do require that you have a valid master spec subscription to utilize those documents. Now, there are 2 areas we really want to focus on in the presentation today. One obviously being the integration with AutoCAD and how AutoCAD elements can automate the preparation of your construction specifications. But I think it's just as important to cover some of the manual processes, because we do get a lot of questions around eSpecs about, well, if we're not quite ready to link to AutoCAD, or it's a smaller project we don't want to integrate, is there a way to manually prepare the spec sections? And absolutely. Here at the top under the Insert menu, we can click on Specification section. This is going to load our base document list, where I now have access to my variety of sections. In this case, I have masters for my Interspec master. I have the VA documents licensed within eSpecs. I have access to our Building Product Manufacturers library, along with various master spec libraries as well that I have licensed through ARCOM. Now, what I'm able to do, we'll focus on master spec full-length 04, is come under any of these divisions, like Division 10 Specialties, and start choosing the sections I want to include in this project manual. Now, I can choose the entire section, or let's dive down into this toilet, bath, and laundry accessories document. You'll notice I have these checklist tags that I can select to build my specification section. These checklist tags are what we call mapped in eSpecs to various paragraphs within the master spec section. So by selecting one checklist tag, that can affect 2, 3, 4, or more specification paragraphs within that section. So here we're going to go under Submittal, select Product Data, Product Schedule, Maintenance Data. The options that we do not select, such as samples, those related paragraphs will still be inserted into the project, but they'll come in stricken out by default. So as we move through, we're going to come under Part 2 Products, underneath Public Use Washroom Accessories, and insert a grab bar with a few manufacturers as well. So you're using this checklist technology that we have built into eSpecs as something of a filter to start building your specification sections. And you can do this independent from AutoCAD at any time. Also, as you're integrating with AutoCAD, you can always get back into this checklist, manually insert sections, edit AutoCAD integrated sections in the checklist as well. Now, once I've made some selections, and in this case I'm just going to insert one document, I'm going to come in, click on OK to insert that section into my project manual. Now under Division 10 Specialties, I have the Toilet, Bath, and Laundry Accessories section, which I can now double click on and load on the right-hand side within the eSpecs editor. Now, the eSpecs editor, as I load this, you'll notice for any master spec users, you're probably familiar with the look and feel of the documents. We've got our blue text, which are notes to specifier. Our black text simply refers to the checklist tags we had selected on the previous screen. So if I go back into the checklist for a moment, go down here into Part 2, you'll notice I had selected public use washroom accessories. Therefore, all the related paragraphs to that checklist tag are inserted into the project. You'll also notice that this is a one-to-many relationship. Public use washroom accessories, well, I chose that down in Part 2, products. eSpecs knows that I also need the relevant information here in the spec section up in Part 1 as well. Now, the options I did not select, healthcare accessories, warm air dryers, they're still listed, but I never selected them. Therefore, the content is inserted into the spec section, but it comes in stricken out by default. I can always go back into the checklist and turn those back on if I want to do more of a one-to-many selection. Or another way, let's cancel out of here so that I don't save my changes, is if I want to do a one-to-one selection where I just want to turn on healthcare accessories but not have that affect anything else, I can simply double-click with my mouse to bring that back into the project manual. And that holds true for any of these paragraphs. I can double-click to toggle them on, or double-click on them again to strike them out. And the color changes just have to do with our track changes functionality within the eSpecs editor. Now, at any time, if you want to get an idea for what this section looks like without all the additional language, the comments, the strikeouts, we have a final draft mode, which you can jump into. Here's the section with my headers and footers. Shows you a print-ready section. It removes all the additional language so you can get an idea for what the section looks like as a print-ready document. But back into edit mode here, we can come in, add in maybe some custom language, just typing it in on my keyboard. Just like a normal Word document, you can absolutely manipulate the section, type in any custom language you need to. One of the popular features of the editor is the bracket tool, which I'll click on here. What this is going to do is scan through the section, and I'm going to skip through a few of these just to get down to the grab bar here. This is a popular feature is instead of having to scroll through looking for all your bracket selections, the bracket tool will find them for you. You'll see as I'm scrolling through and clicking on skip here, I just want to get down to the diameter of this grab bar. You'll notice we have a couple of options. I have 1 1/4 and 1.5 inches. And both of those are showing in the bracket option. So we're going to select 1.5 inches and click on next. If I close out of the bracket tool and go back into the section, here you'll see the outside diameter, 1 1/4 inches is stricken out while 1.5 is enabled. The bracket tool will not only identify where those brackets are, but make the selections for you. Another way I can make the bracket selections is to simply double-click with my mouse. That also works within the bracket tool, within the brackets themselves as well. Now, talking about not only this section, but the entire project manual, there are a lot of global modifications I can make, things to like headers and footers and styles as well. Let's jump into the eSpecs header and footer settings and change the headers for this particular project. Here you'll see I have a copyright from the master spec section. Here it says master spec at the top, and I'm using a merge field which pulls in the section version on the right-hand side. But let's go ahead and change some of this information. So we're going to come in instead of master spec, we're going to type in eSpecs for AutoCAD and remove the section version merge field. And we're going to use a different merge field, and we'll pull in the project name is a popular one I like to use, and simply come down and click on OK. So now you'll see your new header defaults. Not only are they going to apply for this section, but the entire project manual, eSpecs for AutoCAD, and the project name I had given this, ESA Project. We also have the ability to manage styles globally in the database, another very popular feature because we have a lot of users that, while they're using the master spec content, want to change the look and feel of the document. Maybe they want their parts and articles in bold. Maybe they want their articles numbered differently. Instead of 1.1, you want 1.01, 1.02, so on and so forth. So under the Format menu, I'll load the Style Guide Manager, where you'll see I have a couple of styles available to me. And these ship with eSpecs out of the box, but you can create your own. The default style guide is AIA Master Spec, which we currently have assigned. The second one is the VA Master, which we have available within eSpecs. And I'm going to go ahead and apply that style guide and click on Close so that you can see what a new style applied to the same document will do. It's all the same content, but the section looks completely different. Here our comments are now in black instead of blue. They're justified to the right using a completely different font. Our articles are in bold. Our articles are in bold. Parts, all the fonts are different as well. We're using Courier New 10 instead of, I believe it was Times New Roman 11 in Master Spec. But you'll see the content is the same. It's still stricken out, track changes, all that is identical, just the look and feel of the documents are now different. So again, under the Style Guide Manager, I can jump back and forth between those styles. And the great thing is, since we are in a database environment, when you create those styles, they're saved in the database. So any other eSpecs users, whether you're using eSpecs for Autocad, eSpecs for Revit, or eSpecs Links, everybody will have access to those centralized style guides. Now, a lot of this functionality is available because we are in a database environment. The checklist technology, double-clicking to toggle on and off, final draft versus edit modes, header and footer style changes. However, under the File menu, we can always take sections outside of the database if we need to. We can always export an individual section, export all of your sections as individual files, or the entire project manual. Just give me one file, cover sheet, table of contents, all my sections with headers and footers and styles in place. We can also do the reverse, which is take a section outside of eSpecs, a Word document, and bring that into the system. So we're going to go ahead and import a section, which here we have one in the 04 master format. I'm going to select that RTF or doc file. We support both, and click on Open. This is now going to transfer the Word document into the database. And this is a section for maintenance of cast-in-place concrete. Go ahead and click on OK to import that into my project manual. You'll find that section here on the left-hand side under Division 3. You can double-click the section and load it now on the right-hand side within the editor. Now, the great thing about importing sections, you'll notice a few things. First, it takes on the headers and footers for this project. Secondly, it applies the style guide I currently have assigned to the imported section as well. And third, we do have a level of auto formatting, meaning taking a look at the section. If I wanted to remove a paragraph like floor joint repair, I could backspace through it or delete through it, or I can simply double-click with my mouse to toggle that paragraph off or to bring it back in by double-clicking as well. So we have a lot of the auto formatting features built within the imported sections as well. Just above the workspace here on the left-hand side, or in the workspace, just above the division tree, you'll see the table of contents, which I can double-click to load on the right-hand side in the editor. Here we have our maintenance of cast-in-place concrete section that we imported under Division 3. As I scroll down under Division 10, toilet, bath, and laundry accessories. So as we insert sections, whether it's manually like we've been doing, or through the automation with AutoCAD, those sections will automatically build within your table of contents. A couple of features that are new to eSpecs version 6 is the addition of project files. If you have project files maybe outside of the specification that you'd like to link in this project within eSpecs for AutoCAD, you can do that here under the Insert menu and clicking on Project File. And let's see if we have some project files that we can use here. Some of these may not apply to this project we're working on, but just as an example, here I have a list of products and cut sheets. I'll attach this certificate and maybe this PDF document here. I'll select those three and click on Open. Now, in the workspace on the left, underneath the Project Files tab, I can now load any of those documents. They're now stored centrally in the eSpecs database, wherever you have that installed on your network, so that anybody that's writing specifications or accessing our ESA project in this case can now view those project files by simply double-clicking, for instance, this certificate here. That'll load directly from the database onto your machine. You can even save this off, save it onto your desktop if you wanted to. So it's a great way of being able to centralize not only the specifications within eSpecs, but also the project files that belong to it as well. And another thing that I wanted to cover briefly within eSpecs version 6 is keynoting. Now do keep in mind that we have a full-blown keynoting presentation available that we do monthly, and also a recorded version available. We don't cover it fully in eSpecs for AutoCAD because just to cover the keynoting it takes roughly 40 to 45 minutes just to cover that one piece. So I did want to do just a very brief overview of the keynoting, which I'm going to load here. Here's the eSpecs keynote dialog. Now, the thing about the keynotes here is we're not just giving you a large master list of keynotes. These are actually being driven by your specification selections. So as I look at my section for toilet, bath, and laundry accessories, I'll see a listing of all the products. But remember, earlier on using the checklist, I had only selected a grab bar. Therefore, it's the only one predefined in the list of products. Now, if I was to add in mirror unit or another option, those keynotes can be turned on, or I can turn them off by simply selecting them to the left, or making edits in the section will also update our keynotes automatically. And ultimately, as you're building the section, it will build your project-specific keynote list that you can then send to your AutoCAD team so that they're using a project-specific keynote list driven from the specs versus a long list of keynotes that are not project-specific. You also have the ability to do things like import annotations or maybe your own keynote file. If you have a list of master keynotes that you would like to use in addition to these keynotes, you can import that in as well. But again, just wanted to give a brief overview of the keynoting. Again, we have a full-blown keynoting presentation. We do them live every month, and we have recorded versions available for anybody interested in learning more about specification-driven keynotes and how those can be applied in both Revit and AutoCAD. At this point, it's probably a good time to pause just for a moment or two. Let's see if we can take just a question or two before we transition into AutoCAD, and I've actually got AutoCAD architecture that I'm running, and start talking about that integration. So just bear with me one second as I just go through just a couple of questions before we continue on. And again, just a quick note for anybody that joined us late. We do have the phone lines muted this afternoon as we do have quite a few attendees, but there is a questions panel within GoToWebinar. Feel free to post any questions there. We'll try to take a handful before wrapping up. Yes, somebody was asking about the versions of Master Spec. Do we support both Master Formats 04, which we're doing this project in, and Master Format 95? And yes, we support both. eSpecs will ship with all the libraries for both Master Formats 04 and 95. When you start a project, it will simply ask you to choose a default library to use for that project. You'll be able to choose between 04 and 95. And yes, this is a popular question, is do we have access to the supporting documents of our comms within eSpecs? And yes, you do. How the supporting documents work is we're going to look at the active section in the manual, in this case, toilet, bath, and laundry accessories. There's an icon here right at the top for supporting documents, which I can click on. This will redirect to ARCOM's website and go directly to the supporting documents for that section, in this case, toilet, bath, and laundry accessories. Here I can get a list of reference standards, manufacturers, all that great information that's included with your Master Spec subscription. You can view that directly here in the editor. And a question I actually got earlier today was, can you make this screen a little bit bigger? Absolutely. You can turn off the workspace to the left, give you a little bit more real estate to work with as well. Okay, excellent. Well, at this point, I would like to switch gears and start talking about the integration with AutoCAD and how elements in AutoCAD can automate not only your specification sections, but also their checklist selections as well. So what we're going to do is load up AutoCAD Architecture 2010 and run through the integration. Now, there are a lot of different areas that we can integrate with. Things like keynotes. We can read keynotes on the drawings and integrate those with specifications. Material definitions, hatch patterns, blocks, symbols. But to keep things simple, and I'll explain why in just a few moments, what I'm going to do, let's scroll in here. Let's find an element to work with. And we'll jump into the properties of this door. And again, we've got a keynote assigned. We've got material definitions that we can link to the specifications, but I'm focused here in the classifications, in particular, the assembly codes and descriptions that are assigned. I want to use assemblies in this case because this is how we integrate in eSpecs for Revit as well. Meaning, if I was to bind all of my AutoCAD elements to keynotes, that's great. But if I ever move over to eSpecs for Revit, I really can't take that work with me. However, since both AutoCAD and Revit use the same assemblies, if I create what we call bindings from assembly codes and descriptions in AutoCAD, I can also carry them over into eSpecs for Revit if I do migrate from AutoCAD to Revit at some point. So I always recommend binding to the assembly codes and descriptions. That way, if you ever migrate to Revit and eSpecs for Revit, all that binding work, there are links between assemblies and specifications, you don't have to redo any of that. You can simply carry it over during that upgrade process. Now, the great thing is about these assemblies they are in uniformat. So as I scroll down here, we're looking at interior wood doors with metal frames. And based on the association and of these assemblies, by assigning these are going to automate specifications a certain way. So if I was to apply this as an interior metal door with metal frame, that's going to automate specifications one way. But in this case, I have this set as an interior wood door with metal frame. Obviously, I need different specification sections and preferences in those documents. But let's go ahead and focus on this interior wood door with metal frame. Because what I want to do is show you back in eSpecs for AutoCAD how we set up the relationship between that assembly and the specification sections. So we'll jump back here into eSpecs for AutoCAD and load what we call our binding manager. The binding manager is the administrative tool we use to link everything together. Now here on the left-hand side, I have a listing of my bindings. These are all the assembly descriptions. So let's go ahead and scroll down. I could use the Find menu in the lower left-hand corner, but I can easily just scroll right down and look for interior wood doors with metal frames. I'll select that here on the left-hand side. This is the same one I'm using in AutoCAD right now. And on the right-hand side, you're able to determine the specification sections that you wish to automate whenever you find that assembly in your model. And you can do this for a variety of masters if you want to link it to an office master, like my Interspec master here, the VA documents, or your master spec subscription. In this case, we have a default set of bindings that we ship with eSpecs out of the box, linking interior wood doors with metal frames to sections here in Division 8 openings. You'll notice there's a little check mark next to Division 8. As I expand Division 8, you'll see hollow metal doors and frames is bound to that assembly. Flushwood doors, bound to that assembly. As I scroll down, door hardware, bound to that assembly. So one assembly can automate as many specification sections as you need. And focusing on flushwood doors, let's go ahead and expand that. Not only can you bind to the entire section, which you can absolutely do, you can also bind down to the checklist level as well. Meaning, if I see an interior wood door with metal frame assembly, not only do I want flushwood doors, I want this to be specified as an interior flushwood door that's solid core versus a hollow core door. So you can get down to that checklist level just like we did before with the manual checklist selections, but now we're doing it through the automation with AutoCAD. So what we're going to do here in just a moment is we're going to scan through that model and automate our specifications based on the relationship we've set up here in the eSpecs binding manager. And if you want to manipulate these bindings in any way, you simply select the assembly on the left and make different checklist selections on the right. When you come down and click on OK, it'll simply save your preferences in the database. Very important, because once those are in the database, you can just simply reuse these bindings over and over and over again for future projects. All right. Excellent. So we're going to cancel out of the binding manager here, because right now in eSpecs for AutoCAD, the system doesn't know what is in that model currently. I have my imported section. I have my manually inserted section through the checklist, but it doesn't quite know what is in the model just yet. But here you'll see at the very top, we have an eSpecs for AutoCAD plugin. We install this on your Autocad workstation so that your Autocad users can communicate with eSpecs for AutoCAD. And the first option here is I want to set the project name, meaning I want to tie this model to a set of specifications. Let's go ahead and do that now. Here you'll see I'm going to tie this to my ESA or eSpecs for AutoCAD project and click on OK. Once that relationship is now set up, I can click on Export Call-Offs. This is going to take all the information from the model, export it over to the eSpecs for AutoCAD database, again, wherever you have that installed on your network. Now, back within eSpecs for AutoCAD, I can refresh my specification project. What this is going to do is show me the specification sections that are coming from the model, including hollow metal doors and frames, flushwood doors, aluminum windows. And as I look at this refresh section dialog, it shows me the section names, shows me the base document, where are the sections coming from, master spec full length 04. Its origin is coming from a binding. Is it saved? Well, not yet because it's not in the project manual. Its BIM status is that it's a new section. And the refresh action, meaning when I click on OK, what exactly is this going to do? It's going to add in that section. So you get a listing of all the spec sections that are coming from the model. You also get any discrepancies as well. You'll notice right here at the top, toilet, bath, and laundry accessories, the one we manually inserted earlier on. Well, this is from master spec full length. It was manually inserted. It hasn't been saved, but the BIM status is that this section is not called for, meaning I've got a section in the project manual, toilet, bath, and laundry accessories, that is not in the model currently. So in this case, if I was to select this, my refresh action would actually be to remove that section because it has no relevance to the model. But in this case, I want to keep that just for demonstration purposes, so I'll come down and click on OK. So not only showing you the spec sections, but I need discrepancies as well. And when I click on OK, what's going to happen is we're going to start building these specification sections based on the bindings we've created. And then we'll place those sections on the left-hand side in the eSpecs workspace once we've built all these spec sections. So here now on the left-hand side, as I go into eSpecs for AutoCAD, under the various divisions, you can see all the spec sections that are available that came from AutoCAD. I can also come in, let's say under Division 8 openings, double-click on something like a flushwood door section, and load that on the right-hand side within the eSpecs editor. I now have all the same editing capabilities that we've already covered. I can go back into its checklist if I wanted to. Okay, here's the section checklist. The bindings are what created this. I can double-click to toggle on and off. You'll see the section comes in with the styles I have assigned, the headers and footers as well. And based on the bindings I create, that is what determined that this was a solid core and not a hollow core door, as an example, based on the bindings we created. And from here, you can put together the entire project manual. You may do a level of integrated specs with AutoCAD like we've done here. You may also go back under the Insert menu and manually insert sections. Maybe there's some signage that was not on the or left off of the model that you need to manually insert here in the checklist. So you can always go back and forth between the integrated AutoCAD specifications and the manual checklist at any time. And the great thing about this as well, if we make any changes in AutoCAD, it can update our specification. So if we were to remove all of our wood doors and replace them, we could automatically get rid of the flushwood door specification section. Now, some other functionality directly in AutoCAD, let's go back into AutoCAD here for a moment, is I have the ability to do things with a plugin like what we call highlight elements. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this. I'm going to scroll in so that this is hopefully a little bit easier to see. Go ahead and highlight elements. And it might be a little difficult to see, but here what you'll notice is that the elements that are actually bound to specification sections that we're finding in the model will be somewhat grayed out. And I know it may be difficult to see on your screen. Let's see if I can scroll in a little bit here and run that. So you see how it's a little bit grayed out here compared to what it was earlier on. Maybe if I scroll out, you can see that a little bit easier. If I click on it again, should turn that view back off. There we go. So it's actually showing you the elements in the model that have specification sections bound to them. You can also view bindings. While you can't edit them in AutoCAD, you can actually view bindings directly here as well. So if we were to come down and take a look at interior, what do we have? Interior wood doors, I believe it was, with metal frames. Here you can see the spec sections they're bound to. Hollow metal doors and frames, flushwood doors and door hardware, and I can actually expand and actually view the checklist here directly in the AutoCAD plugin. So here we've got our interior flush with door, so solid core door versus hollow core. That's how we built our bindings in eSpecs for AutoCAD. That's how they should show up in the plugin as well. So that's just some of the additional functionality in the plugin, in addition to exporting model information, the ability to highlight elements, and view your bindings directly in the plugin. But again, back in eSpecs for AutoCAD, it's all about putting together the project manual. You can do all of your work here in eSpecs for AutoCAD. You can import consultant sections, go back into the checklist, and insert manual sections if you need to. You have access to the master spec supporting documents here in eSpecs, and if you ever need to, you can always export to Word if you ever needed to, not only individual spec sections, but the entire project manual as well. Well, at this point, what I would like to do is jump back into PowerPoint, start talking about how the licensing and the pricing breaks down. Also add another slide with an email address on it where you can send in your questions, request recorded presentations, or the pricing information. So why don't we jump into PowerPoint here and cover how the licensing and the pricing breaks down. Grab my highlighter. You can license eSpecs for AutoCAD in two different ways. You can do a perpetual-based license or a term-based license. But let's start with a term-based down here below. Now you'll notice the line item says eSpecs for Revit/AutoCAD. By purchasing eSpecs for AutoCAD, you also get access to eSpecs for Revit. Okay. Now you do share the same license, and this is $1,295 a year per floating license. So floating license, meaning you can have 50 installations around your network, but only one person at a time can log in and edit specs. So think about that as you're thinking about, well, the number of licenses we need for eSpecs for AutoCAD, how many people at a time you think would be logged into the system editing specifications. That'll give you the number of licenses you need. The AutoCAD plugins that we provide for your AutoCAD workstations, those are free of charge. If you are doing Revit integration, however, there's a cost for the Revit plugin if you're looking to do both integration with AutoCAD and Revit. We have the perpetual licensing here at the top. This is for $2,795 per floating network license. You're purchasing the license outright, and you're paying yearly software maintenance, tech support, product updates of $420 a year. And don't feel as though you have to write all this information down. Again, I'm going to provide an email address on the next slide where you can request this pricing information. All right, excellent. And on this next slide, what I'm going to do is stay on the line for a few more minutes and answer some questions. But for those of you that do need to log off, just had a few more things I wanted to cover. Here's that email address, sales@e-specs.com. Send your request there for pricing information. We also have recorded presentations of eSpecs for Revit, eSpecs for AutoCAD, eSpecs Designer, managing an Office Master within eSpecs, and also the full-blown Keynoting presentation. I know we only did a very brief overview of the Keynoting here today. If you'd like to see the entire Keynoting presentation, just send us off an email to sales. Those are free to download. But again, for anybody that does need to log off at this point, I do want to thank you for joining us, but I'm going to stay on the line here for a few more minutes, see if we can answer a few more questions.